Good morning, everybody. Welcome to e-learning day 3. What I'd like to do is go through this PowerPoint and give you some background information because there's really not much more we can do until you know a little bit more about what you're doing with forensics document examination. So let me go through this, and then at the end of the lecture, I'm going to have you guys post one question from the lecture on Canvas or Echo. That way I know you've gone through the lecture, and it will give you a chance to ask a question if you have questions. So we saw in Catch Me If You Can that a forensics document examiner, just like Carl Hanratty, would be looking for all kinds of information from paper, ink, the authenticity of the paper, money, handwriting, wills, passports. There's all kinds of things that people can fake. And with identity theft being such a big crime in America now, that's something else that you would be looking into if you were a forensic document examiner. It's useful because no two people have the exact same handwriting. So the belief is that your handwriting is just as unique as your fingerprints. I'm trying to make this a little smaller so you can see. So each person will exhibit their own handwriting characteristics by the time they are in adulthood. And we saw that a little bit with you guys writing up on the whiteboard. What you would need if you're going to be checking out a piece of paper that's questioned, like maybe the letters in the Zodiac movie that we talked about, you need an exemplar. So that is samples of people's handwriting that have been collected, and that can be used to compare information. So like, for example, in the John and Patsy Ramsey case, they had letters that Patsy had written 6 months before, and also things that she had written recently, and had lots of different examples of her handwriting to compare to the ransom note. It wasn't just having her write the ransom note again and then comparing, because then it would be more likely that a person who's a criminal would be able to fake it. So what you need first is to look at the hardware involved in your letter: ink, paper, pens, whether or not there's a typewriter, printers. Typewriters and printers can be very unique. They can have little characteristics that that a forensic examiner might be able to catch when they're looking at the papers that have been used in those devices. And then you've got your visual examination of the writing. We're going to be doing a lab called ink chromatography, and basically what you're doing is putting a pen in a beaker and a little bit of a mark from the pen there, and the paper will kind of wick the ink up as the solvent goes up through the paper that has the ink on it, and it breaks it apart into specific colors. So each pen will have its own unique signature of ink. So we'll be doing that if we can ever get back into the school. Here's a couple of different examples of the ink chromatography. And this goes more into detail with the lab, so we'll talk more about that when we get ready to do the lab. There are 12 characteristics that generally are used by handwriting analysts. So let's take a look at those. Line quality, word and letter spacing, letter comparison, that's like characteristics of specific letters, when or where a person lifts their pen as they're writing, what letters do they connect, how do they begin and end letters, is there anything that's unusual about any of their letters? Like we saw with Jacob in sixth period, the way he draws his R is unusual. Shading or pen pressure, slant, whether or not it's straight along the baseline. Do they have flourishes or embellishments? And where do they put their diacritics? That would be the I and the T. So here's line quality. Is it smooth or is it kind of shaky? One of the things that Patsy Ramsey did, if she is the one who wrote the note, was she started out with very shaky letters. So either she was very tense or she was trying to fake her handwriting. The spacing in between letters, that's something a lot of people don't think about if they're trying to forge writing, because, why would you think of that? Most of the time people just think about the shape of the letters. The ratio of the letters. Do you always make your R larger or your N larger or smaller than all the other letters? Where are your pen lifts and separations? And when I write my name, I always lift between the I and the G of Paige. Always lift that way. So you get into habits where you lift between specific letters, and that can give someone a clue as to whether or not the handwriting is faked. Connecting strokes, like this person always connects the T to their H and their O to their H when they write their name. Beginning and ending strokes, so here the person begins kind of like in the middle of that letter J, and this one, the beginning stroke, looks very different. Same thing with the end. This person curls up their H on the end. This person did not. Unusual letter formations. So do you have anything that is written backwards? Do you have any big, large, loopy characteristics to the letters? Like you can tell in this one, the original is that's a very natural loop. And here you can see where they were trying to fake that. Hi, Bear. This is my dog, Koji Bear. He doesn't like to be videoed. Okay, pen pressure is another thing that you just don't think about if you're trying to forge a letter. But how hard do people write with their pencil or their pen? Look, you can see in the original, the person's just barely touching the paper. In the forgery, it's very obvious that they're touching it with a little more pressure. What kind of a slant do the letters have? So people who are legitimate handwriting analysts will go in and they will literally calculate the slant of the letters with a protractor. That way they can make a comparison. So this person's writing is much more slanted than this person, even though it looks pretty good. Baseline habits. This person is, keeping theirs fairly straight. Down here, they're keeping it fairly straight here. But up here, they have a little bit of more space in between the word and the line. And down here, the word is directly on the line. So you can see that. Flourishes and embellishments, any fancy letters. So let's see here, the person keeps their C's a lot more curly, and this person's C's are not as curly. So I guess that's kind of like the John Hancock of handwriting, like where are your fancy letters? And then last but not least, your diacritic placement. We saw this in the video we watched. Where do you put the dot on your I? Is it before the I, after the I? Do you cross your T at the top or in the middle? Those kinds of things. And that's the end of my slideshow. So I'm going to put a text box up. You can let me know if you have any questions about the video, but see if you can come up with one question. That way I know that you've watched it and you have the opportunity to ask me. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. Bye. If I can get this to stop.